Good morning, students. My name is Susan Robinson. I am a hobby beekeeper in Massachusetts. I have 2 beehives in my yard, and I love beekeeping. My first question comes from Ava in Callout Middle School in Medina. The question is, why did you choose to become a beekeeper? And what is your favorite part about being a beekeeper? Well, Ava, as a child and an adult, before I became a beekeeper, anytime I would drive past a beehive, I would get very excited. I grew up in the city and we were not able to have a farm at my house. And when I realized that it doesn't take much land to become a beekeeper, I got very excited. I wish I was a beekeeper at a younger age, but it didn't start until I was quite an adult. My favorite part of beekeeping is sitting right beside the beehive and watching the worker bees go out and do their job every day and come back in. And did you know, Ava, that the worker bees are all females? Go figure, the girls do all the work. Lucas at Evening Street Elementary School in Worthington, and he wants to know, how do you take care of them? There's like 1,000 bees in the hive. It's so impressive. Well, let me tell you, Lucas, it's a little bit unnerving in the beginning to open up a beehive and go into the hive to take care of the bees. But I wear lots of protective clothing, including a bee jacket, and I wear bee gloves, and I have some equipment that helps me move the bees around and the hive around. So my bee jacket is basically many layers of mesh. It's really dirty, I'm sorry, but I'm a really hard beekeeper. So it's all made of little mesh fibers, and there's different layers of it. So when the bee lands on my clothing, they cannot stick their stinger in through the clothing and get it into my skin. So I wear a jacket. It goes from my tummy all the way up to the top of my head, and they all have zippers on them. You can see the zipper on my jacket. So when I put my jacket on, I zip it all nice and tight from the tummy all the way up to my chin, and then I zip the veil all across so that no bees can get inside my body. And then I wear some gloves. These gloves are cleaner because they're new. You can see that the gloves are nice and clean. Can you guys see them there? And I even have some mesh on. I don't know if you can see that or not. I have some mesh on the glove right at the sleeve so that some air can flow in. And these go all the way up to my elbow. And this keeps me protected when I'm working in the hive with my bee tools. This is called a smoker. We put pine needles inside the smoker and light it on fire. And then this is called a billows. I'm not going to light it on fire because I'm inside my house and my smoke alarm would go off. After I light up the pine needles, which burn really nicely, I puff, puff, puff the billows, and it sends cool air into this little chimney right here. And the cool air goes up and it burns the fire. And the smoke, we want nice cool smoke. We don't want flames because that would hurt the bees. The smoke comes out the chimneys, and we puff, 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 a couple of puffs at the front door of the beehive. And when the smoke goes inside the beehive, the bees think, oh my goodness, there's a forest fire coming. And the bees go into the hive and they start eating honey to fill their bellies with honey because they think they're going to have to leave their hive and go away. But it just messes with their brain enough for me to go into the hive and get the bees out of my way so I don't hurt the bees when I work the hive. I don't want to crush bees. And that just moves them out of the way. That was a great question. Judah from Lakeview, Intermediate, and Stowe sent in this question. What's your typical day to day? Well, really, the bees do all the work, and I will observe them coming into the hive and going out of the hive just by standing close to the entrance. They do the work, and I only open up the hive in the springtime, usually once a week, or maybe even once a month. They don't really need too much attention. I just want to make sure that they have plenty of food and the queen is doing her job and laying eggs, and the rest of the hive, the boys and the girls, are all getting along. The boys are called drones. They don't really do much work. And the girls are called workers. They do all the work. Riley from Woodlands Elementary in Huron wanted to know, what do they do with the honey? So the bees gather nectar beginning in the springtime when the flowers start coming out. The nectar is the juice that is inside the flower, and they suck that juice out of the flower using their very, very long tongue called a proboscis. When that nectar goes inside the honeybee, that nectar churns and churns and churns inside the honeybee's honey stomach. And they then come back to the hive, and they go inside the hive, and they start spitting out that nectar to another bee, and that goes inside the other bee's honey stomach. And that bee will churn and churn, and what they're churning is enzymes, and that's breaking down the nectar and getting it ready to make honey. The second bee that is inside the hive, she's a girl, she's a worker, of course. She goes into the frame and she'll spit out that nectar into a small little cell, and it's kind of like the consistency of water. The bees will flap their wings outside the hive. They will draw cool air into the hive, and the cool air rises and it takes the moisture out of that cell. And once it's almost sticky enough, that's when the bees will generate wax. The females, the girls, they will generate wax from their bellies, and they will cap over that little cell that's inside the hive. And then the honey is their food. So they actually eat all the honey. But the bees are really, really hard workers. So they always gather extra nectar, and they put it way up in the attic of their hive, their house. And any extra nectar that they turn into honey, that's when the humans go in and they take it out of the hive. And that's the extra honey, is the honey that the humans will eat and consume. Emily from Bath Elementary in Akron wanted to know, how do bees pollinate fruit if most of them are kept in the beehive? There are 4 weeks that a honeybee starts out as a brand new bee, and they have different jobs. They start inside the hive in their first week of life, and they do all kinds of jobs inside the hive. Some of them take the nectar out of the other worker bee's tummy and they put it into the cells. Some of the worker bees inside the hive, they will feed the queen or even clean up after her poop, and they will make sure that the queen is healthy. But there are many, many jobs inside the hive. Another job is they carry out any sick or dead bees out of the hive, and they bring it outside and they dump it in the ground. If a bee dies in the hive, that could cause disease. So they want it to be very clean inside the hive. And can you imagine taking a dead bee out of the hive? But that's one of the jobs. So there are 4 weeks that the bee is alive in the summertime. So through the first 3 weeks, they all get assigned a certain job. I don't know who tells them what their job is. They just do it. They're wicked smart. And then the last week that they're alive is when they start to venture out of the hive. And that's when they can go out and they can gather nectar. They will also gather pollen off of the flowers. They will put it in there. The nectar goes in their tummy, and the pollen gets attached to their legs. And when I am watching a beehive, if I'm sitting by the front entrance, I can see the bees flying back into the hive with sacks of pollen on their little legs. They use that pollen to feed any of the brood that is inside the hive. The brood is the cycle of life. It starts out as an egg, goes to a larvae, looks like a grub, which is yucky, but it's okay because it's good inside the hive. Then a pupa, and then it will hatch out as a bee. So the bees use every morsel of honey, nectar, and pollen that they bring into the hive. Zara from Cansingham Elementary in Bexley asks, how do you keep the bees during the winter? Well, Zara, when the bees realize that the temperature is getting very, very cold, they will go out and gather as much nectar as they can for the winter. And they basically stay inside the hive all winter long. The only time that they will venture out if the temperature goes above 50 degrees on a sunny day. The bees will come out of the hive, they will poop, and then they will go back into the hive. When the bees are in the hive in the wintertime, they actually all stay together in a big ball. It's called a cluster. It's kind of like a basketball. They will vibrate their wings. And when they vibrate their wings, that generates heat for the cluster, the basketball. The queen stays inside the middle because she's toasty warm all winter long. The bees that are on the outside of the basketball, when they get chilly, they move inside and the other bees come out and they surround. It's all surrounded all winter long. And they will eat honey all winter long. So as a beekeeper, I actually need to give them extra sugar water starting in September, October, so that they can change that sugar water into honey so that they have enough food to get them through the winter. Because they don't have a grocery store in the middle of winter. They have to stay inside their hive. So that's a great question. Thank you.